How can we put it in a form that is different than what they've seen before, that really helps them navigate their care?
What makes it so great and so different is no longer do you have to search and scour the internet for all this information, because we're putting it all together in one app.
Every person in my research team is also a patient, is a congenital heart disease patient. It's really more than a job. It is my purpose and passion that I found.
Trying to do something better that helps the patients.
This is The 1% Heart, a podcast about the millions of people living with congenital heart defects. This episode is about Empower My Congenital Heart, an app and website created for CHD patients to track and monitor their care. It also provides a community and resources to navigate that experience. You can learn more and sign up at EmpowerMyCH.org or follow them on Instagram at empower.my.ch. I have three guests today that are critical to the program: Anu Agarwal, Joe Valente, and Lindsay Alano. We have a lot to talk about, but before they introduce themselves, here's my normal quick disclaimer. Nothing said here constitutes medical advice. Let me say that again. Even though we're speaking formally, it is not medical advice. I also want to include a trigger warning, as we will discuss medical-related problems, specifically around CHD. Listener discretion is always advised. But that out of the way, team, thank you for taking the time to join me here today. Thank you for coordinating with the time zone. And I really appreciate you letting me get used to running this software again.
Thanks for having us, Dresden.
So do you mind introducing yourselves and the role you have with the program?
Sure, and thank you, Dresden, again for having us, and we are very excited to be here. Before our introductions, we would like to start with a couple disclaimers as well. Although we are all at UCSF, we aren't speaking on behalf of UCSF. And as you said, we were to reemphasize that the EmpowerMyCH app we will be talking about does not provide any medical, legal, or financial advice to the users. And finally, all our user information is kept fully confidential, and we do not disclose any personal information unless consented by our users. So with that, I am Anu Agarwal, an associate professor of medicine within the Division of Cardiology at University of California, San Francisco, which is UCSF. I am an adult congenital heart disease doctor and also director of the ACHD program at UCSF. Our research program is called Patient-Centered Research Program, since it primarily focuses on partnering with the patients and the community to make a positive impact. On a personal note, I am also a family member of a CHD patient. My younger brother has bicuspid aortic valve, and he has had some few procedures on his valve during his childhood as well as an adult. Over to Joe.
I am Joe Valente. I'm the project lead for the Patient-Centered Research Program. I'm a board-certified patient advocate and a CHD patient with tetralogy of Fallot. I've had 4 open heart surgeries, the last being when I was 30 years old. I began working with Anu because of her focus on patient-centered research, and my previous research experience and interests have been aligned with this work, making it a natural fit. I'll pass it over to Lindsay.
Hey, I'm Lindsay. Again, thanks, Dresden, for having us on your show today. I'm the patient engagement chair for the patient-centered research program, and I was born with tricuspid atresia, single ventricle, leaky mitral valve, and transposition of the greater arteries. I had 3 open heart surgeries by the time I was 6 years old. And then, as you know, as adults go along, my heart started to fail, and so did my liver. So I recently had a heart and liver transplant in October 2023. I came on this project actually from Joe. Joe and I used to work closely together, and we reconnected about 7-8 months ago. He shared with me a little bit about what him and Anu are doing, and they were kind of looking for someone to lead patient engagement. And so here I am working with this fantastic team. And so I'm very grateful to be here.
I appreciate the introductions. And I'll be frank with you here. I've read all your backgrounds. I've met all of you multiple times, but still hearing it all laid out to me, one after the other, I cannot help but be impressed. So I know I'm feeling that way, so I can't imagine how our listeners are feeling. And it means a great deal to see how patients and family members and how we all have a direct connection. We're coming together to do what we can. So just incredibly impressive. Now I want to talk about EmpowerMyCH. I want to talk about the app and the website. Joe, can you go ahead and walk us through some of the key features, explain how it helps patients and families? And before you get into that, can you give me a high-level explanation of what it is? Because my introduction was embarrassingly high level, and I want people to understand what exactly we're talking about here.
Yeah, so at the high level, we provide educational resources to patients so that they can be more empowered and engaged in their care. So I think we really feel that everybody wants to feel valued. And I think in healthcare, that really means being seen and heard and respected. So we give patients the tools to feel more confident and build their value as a key member of their healthcare team. So they don't just show up to their appointments, but they show up prepared, informed, and empowered. And so we do that through a healthcare or through a digital app that you can access both on mobile app and through the website. And through that app, it provides you with various tools. And one of the main tools is various educational resources that we provide, such as navigating your doctor's appointments, finding appropriate ACHD care, and the such.
And this is all CHD focused. So this is an app specifically for the 1 in 100 kids born today with these anomalies in the structure of the heart.
Yes, and more specifically geared towards adults, currently adults, and we're also looking at more into the teen sort of adolescence and transition in the future.
Yeah, I love that because of the atrociously high amount of patients that are lost to care between the childhood level surgeries and the surgeries afterwards. So adding on that focus is very beneficial to the community as a whole.
Yeah. And that is specifically the gaps we're really trying to fill with this app is trying to keep patients engaged in their care and not being lost to care, because we know that, up to 85% of patients in the adult congenital world are not getting the recommended specialized care that they need.
And I think it comes down to an awareness problem, which is another great way this app is filling the void. I've mentioned this on a few episodes, but I was talking to people about a walk I recently did, friends of mine, and they were learning about CHD, and they said, hey, I had open heart surgery when I was this age to fix this thing. Is that like a CHD? And I'm sitting there like, no, that is a congenital heart defect. And I've had that conversation with two separate people in a very brief window. It's amazing to me how it's an awareness problem. And then even if you're aware, it's being seen, heard, and respected. So I think this app not only is attacking the main problem, but also attacking the tertiary problems. Speaking of, Anu, do you want to tell us how it all came to be?
Yeah. So, Justin, as an ACHD doctor, I see this recurring challenge every day where exactly what you mentioned, patients, there is an awareness issue, patients are not getting the right care. And so that has been a constant motivation for me to figure out ways to fill these gaps. But we wanted to do this using methods that were grounded in science in a way that has a clear structured process so that we could continuously learn what's working and what could be done better. So with that background and mindset, we built this app using 3 key scientific approaches. The first one, we started by listening. And we did this through our qualitative interviews. We conducted semi-structured interviews with 54 ACHD patients and clinicians from across the country to understand what they needed the most. And a key takeaway was really the importance of patient empowerment, which is really giving patients all the knowledge, skills, and confidence that they need to advocate for themselves. The second thing we did is we used a community-based participatory approach. What that means is we work closely with our CHD patients, just like you, Justin, other family members of the patients, other clinicians, researchers, advocacy representatives, and we bring them together into our advisory board as an advisory board members. Their input has been the most critical thing to shape every step of the process, ensuring that this app is not only clinically sound and has all the expert advice, but it also truly is relevant and useful to the people that is meant to serve. And then lastly, it is a more technical concept, but an important foundation for this app. We grounded everything in behavioral sciences. So we used a framework called the behavior change wheel. And in simple terms, everything in EmpowerMyCH is designed to do one or more of these 3 things. Either it enhances our users' capabilities, or provide them with opportunities, or increase their motivation for them to be an engaged partner in this complex healthcare system that we all live in. So, that's the most important behavioral science. We also brought in principles of digital health equity and behavioral economics so that we can make this more accessible and inclusive. So just to summarize, with the amazing dedicated research partners, Joe and Lindsay, who we all heard are also patients themselves, EmpowerMyCH came to life as a truly patient-centered tool built with and for the CHD community.
Very well said. And I'm a huge fan of behavioral economics. I'm a finance bro as my day job. So it makes a lot of sense to me that you're using those tools to keep people engaged. And the 3 principles, the capabilities, opportunities, and motivation, I can see how they tie perfectly together. I do want to push back on your answer though, because there are some parts I want to know. And this is my one chance to ask. Whose idea was the app?
So it came about, I am a physician, but I'm also in a researcher. I was writing a grant. Okay, it's called a K grant, which is career development grant. And I was thinking about, when I was writing the K grant, thinking about the bigger picture. What do I want to achieve? And, during my career as a researcher. And I felt like the biggest need in the congenital heart disease field is this, filling the gaps in care. And so the way I think about in my K grant is, what is that first step I can take to get to that bigger goal? It is, of course, a very ambitious goal to fill all the gaps in care. And I think the first thing that came to mind, which was pretty natural, was how can we make our patients more activated and engaged and empowered? And I think I looked at many the literature that is out there. There are lots of nurse-led education interventions and ways to empower patients, but the problem is scalability. Our healthcare system is very fractured, and it's not like a universal healthcare system. It's very difficult to do that. Then the resources are not enough. The clinic time is always limited. There was lots of challenges to scale very personal, person-based interventions. And so, we thought of what can we do? What do we do during those nurse-led that could be done digitally? There are more smartphones out there, and I think that's how it all started. One thing I want to add is, whenever we talk about app, we all started thinking about the cost and how expensive it could be, and all of that stuff. I think the thing that really helped us is we're situated at UCSF, and within a division, we have a very strong digital health research platform called Eureka that has been used in previous congenital heart disease research. But Eureka really helped us build this app without adding much cost to design, development, implementation, or deployment.
So you identified the problem, and you're being at UCSF, you also found a way to cost effectively build on an existing tool. So it sounds like it was the right people in the right place at the right time. That's brilliant. I still want to know about the actual practicality of like, you come up with this idea when you're writing the grant, you do research, you prove it out, and then you get people around you and you have to go fight for it. You have to convince anyone. I want to hear the trials and tribulations.
Yeah, I think from like an implementation standpoint, Eureka has a lot of constraints to it because it wasn't designed to do what we wanted it necessarily, what I think all the dreams of it were that we had, but it's been a benefit in some ways to us because I think you dream big and you want it to do all the things, but in the end, it's like, I think it's the demise of a lot of like apps and stuff that you overshoot. And so not just apps, just digital tools in the end. And so it's really forced us to think about every aspect that we build and to fit it into their constraints and make sure that everything we do is really beneficial to the patient and not just we want this. And so it's made us think twice about everything we do. And I think it just causes us to be even more patient focused because in the research environment, you don't have unlimited resources ever. But if the technology is even more constrained because it wasn't initially designed to do everything that we want it to do. But initially it's like, oh, we really want to do gamification to, more engage the patients, or, we wanted to do XYZ and we can't do it. But it's like, well, how else can we do what we wanted to do? Or maybe that's not really what we wanted to do. It's going to take more resources down the line, or it's going to take more management, or it's going to be whatever it is. And so we figure out how else we can do it or how we can implement it within the constraints that they have set out. And I think in the end, it's just caused us to make the content and everything we're delivering to the patients better. And so I don't know if that 100% answers your question, but
it does. Working under the limitations of the system makes you think about, you wanted to do something, but if you're not able to do it, you think about, well, why did I want to do this? And you go back to the drawing board and rebuild it in a way that's more streamlined. The problem you're talking about, it's not limited to digital tools. It's called scope creep, where people keep 100%. Adding in certain more capabilities and it becomes cumbersome and it doesn't get done. And the way it's solved in business is very similar to working inside that platform. It's by limiting resources. It's why you might hear about this person had this great idea for an app and got virtually unlimited resources, and it never came to be, versus the people that built a company in their garage because they had only limited amounts of time, money, energy, and had to use it right. That's so right. In a lot of ways, that limitation is beneficial. So I get exactly where you're coming from there. Now,
That's very well explained, Justin. I want to add one more thing. This is not about the implementation, but this is about this didn't happen overnight, right? I mean, it didn't happen within a night, within a year, within a two. This has been something that was going on in planning and thinking about since like 2018, 2019. So it's been a long process of very thoughtful and deeper thinking on what goes on. So I think one challenge I would say I have personally noticed in going around with this app is it's not easy for people to clearly grasp what it is. Just after talking about it once or twice, I can say for Joe, it took us quite a few months, Joe, remember, like working together to really fully grasp what EmpowerMyCH is. And I've noticed that over and over when I talk to anybody, that they don't get it the first time, and I don't blame anybody. I think it is so much scientifically vetted in terms of behavioral principles and all of that. Those are not things that come naturally to people. And so it does take a little while for people to really understand what it is and what it can offer, and in all the all the other methods. And I know we're not perfect, right? We're starting with something basic, and we're constantly thinking about how we can do better, but our user feedback is what is helping us to do that.
well said. That actually ties perfectly to my next question is, it sounds like this app is creating a framework that hasn't really been explored the way you're doing it with many other medical care apps or apps focused. And I hate to keep calling it an app because it's also a website and you can log in on both. But how is this different from the other medical and community support applications, websites, programs out there?
Well, that's a really, really good question. And if you kind of think of it, Dresden, from like a patient perspective, if you're a kid who has CHD and now is transitioning into adult, you probably relied on your parents a lot for all the information, telling you when your appointments are, telling you your surgeries, telling the doctor your diagnosis. And now all of a sudden you're becoming an adult. Well, where is that information? Where are you going to learn all that? You know, the doctors only have limited time, nurses only have limited time. So you can scour the internet, right, and find it, but that would take forever. And what is the right information? There's so much information out there. So what we've been able to do with this EmpowerMyCH is gather all the important information for patients to really feel empowered in their care. So when we create these educational guides per se, we're working with physicians, nurses, doctors, patients, and really laying out the educational material that will benefit each patient moving forward. So it's every kind of information from how to select the right doctor to what is an echocardiogram to how do I prepare for my procedures. So it's very specific to CHD patients when they're heading into the adult care. So kind of piggybacking a little bit of what Anu was saying, it is grounded in science. So it's developed with a team experience in the principles of digital health. It's guided by clinical experts. We also have a lot of peer empowerment within the app. So you're not just going to get, education from clinicians, but you're also going to hear from patients themselves. So what experience do they have when they have their echocardiogram? What do they do to find the right ACHD physician? So we're really trying to get that human aspect and connection. So when someone is reading this educational guide and seeing a peer empowerment, they're like, oh, me too. And so they don't feel alone. So that's, I think, what makes it so great and so different is no longer do you have to search and scour the internet for all this information because it's already overwhelming. We're putting it all together in one app, and it's verified because of all the people that are behind that constantly creating the content.
Very well said, Lindsay. And the thoughts that occur to me as you're answering are, it's probably more difficult than maybe some other lifelong conditions would be, because not only is there a lack of awareness and understanding of what CHDs are, but there's also so many different conditions that a lot of people don't realize that they're part of a larger subset. And there is a community of people with similar conditions out there. Mm-hmm. So it makes me think that not only is this app going about it in what I think is a new way and a more comprehensive approach,
yes,
but you guys are operating on a condition that, speaking as a patient, is probably one of the harder conditions to find good research for and find that community for. And it makes me think, and Lindsay might not know the answer to this, but it kind of sounds like this could be a great framework. This is a proof of concept. This is a beta test in a lot of ways for other specialized care apps, because a lot of this is transferable to other lifelong conditions. Am I reading that right, Lindsay?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. She has the brains behind it.
But it proves out the ability that when you use a data-founded approach and you keep people engaged, and I love behavioral economics, I've read way too many books on it, but making people take care of themselves in a way, showing them how to take care of themselves in a way that makes it simple and puts the tools at their fingertips, seems to be a very powerful way to go about it.
Yeah, and people want to feel empowered. You know what I mean? Like people want to take ownership of themselves and be independent. And so they have the ability to do that with this app and the information we're giving them. And so it's not only they're getting educational materials, but we hope that's going to give them confidence moving forward as they navigate their care into the future.
We're really digging into these nebulous concepts, and I'm going to make it even worse here in a second. So we've talked about all the ways this could be applied and all the ways it can help not only patients like us, but other patients. Anu, what's next? What are the future plans for this? Do you have specific goals? Or more larger goals?
Yeah. Before I go to the goals, I also want to add that I know we're talking about a lot of educational tools, but we also give a lot of other resources and the fingertips for the patients, like fingertips are in their hand or however you want to say it, because it's all in the phone. But they have, a couple of things we didn't talk about that this app also provides is the patients can keep all their medical information in one place. We have something called as a My Medical Passport tab. So as people go into the Eureka app, they can see something called as My Medical Passport. And if they tap on it, they can, of course, they fill some surveys that was asked of them to complete, and that populates all their medical information. So, for example, if somebody fills in all the detailed information about this is the congenital heart disease I have, these are the surgeries I had, this is the pacemaker, etc., information, and this is my doctor, this is the contact information for my doctor. All of that can then be viewed by the patients themselves on the app all the time. So let's say they end up in an emergency room. They want to share that information with their friends. They change doctors. They move different country. They're traveling. All of that information is with them all the time that they can access. They can show it to somebody and they can just quickly take care of the patients. In addition, if they're traveling, we provide an easy way for them to access. Where is there a provider, a CHD provider? All of these educational materials that we build is all available for them to access in the app. So there's a lot of these tools that are available to the patients.
See, I'm very happy you brought that up, and I didn't know if we were mentioning it. That passport is brilliant, and I almost swore there because I'm a very big fan of that passport. Like, every time my insurance changed growing up, my health insurance, I would typically have to switch cardiologists, and it got to the point where when I moved to Nashville and I went to the Vanderbilt ACHD clinic, first time I ever went to a real adult congenital doctor. After the first meeting, I went back home and I had to just sit there embarrassed and send a follow-up message saying, hey, so what exactly did I have done? Because like I had surgeries and I knew one was open heart and I had a couple through the leg and I knew I had stents, but I never had anyone really explain it to me. And if I had a passport, if I had just all my records in one spot, because I'm also 30 years old now. So it started with paper records. They got put onto digital and it was part of that digital wave. So it got first put onto tapes and CDs. And then I don't even know what's on now. So I don't even know where all my records are. But that doctor did. And he wrote a very nice message explaining to me what my conditions were, how they were fixed. And it's embarrassing to think about. Like I was 20. I had known what happened, but I was 24, 25 before I actually could sit down and name it all with the exact dates, with the exact names, with the types of surgeries they were, not just open or, through the leg. So I love that passport. Big fan of that passport. Anyway, sorry. Anu, what's next for the app? What are the next steps? Short-term, long-term, micro level, high level?
Yeah, great question. Because as we all talked about so already, that this is just a start, right? This is just a small, we call it as, you're probably more familiar in the digital world, minimal viable product. We started something that would be, a good start. We are learning constantly through our user feedback and constantly thinking about how we can improve and do better every day. So there's a lot that's ahead of us. I think we can think of things that are ahead of us in terms of the features of the app and also things in terms of, how are we going to reach other people who are not yet in the app? So I'm going to have Joe and Lindsay talk about each of their efforts because they have been working a lot on these future features. So Joe can talk more about the features and Lindsay can talk about all the things that she's doing in terms of engagement.
Awesome. I'm excited.
All right. Yeah. So one of our main focuses going forward is going to be to try to increase user engagement in the app through the incorporation of user feedback. And we're planning on doing this through a future grant that's going to have more active involvement from our advisory board to build out more app features and also improve the education materials even more so they more align with the needs of the CHD patients. And actually, this is a grant that's actually studying how like advisory boards and patients we get involved with research. So it's a science called the Science of Engagement. So we're pretty excited about this, and we're working on that grant right now. And then another grant we're actively working on is to provide a Spanish version of the app. And, research shows that patients from households that don't speak English as a primary language use fewer healthcare services and have less favorable health outcomes in English primary language households. And Spanish is the largest subset of non-English speakers in the United States. So this is a large group, and it kind of compounds with what we were talking about earlier with care gaps. So, if you take that care gaps that a lot of CHD patients experience as they transition or young adolescents, and then go with, they don't have a good language. They have the language barriers and that kind of stuff. They don't speak English or don't speak English well, then they're more likely to experience those gaps. So we really want to help educate those patients. And so we want to engage Spanish-speaking advisory board like we have with our current advisory board to adapt the app to Spanish-speaking version so we can engage that population as well. And improve the features and educational materials so they more closely align with the needs of the CHD patients. So just iterating on what we already have by more actively engaging the advisory board.
Perfect. And I know for a fact that there are, the Adult Congenital Heart Association, the Cardiac Neurodevelopment Outcomes Collaborative, all those different organizations have great resources. So getting them, I'm sure they're happy to share, and getting them all in one spot, it's going to be phenomenal for patients. A lot of the fun you have as a patient is finding out what you should be reading and finding documents. So having it all right at your fingertips, like Anu said, is great. And Lindsay, I didn't mean to cut in before you got your chance.
Oh, no, it's okay. There's a lot of good material that Joe does all the time that I sometimes a little bit over my head. So that's why I keep focused on the patient engagement part. And it's a very broad term, patient engagement, but there's a couple places that we want to focus on moving forward. And since we kind of all understand that like the going from childhood to adult care, there's a lot of gaps, or like people stop going or don't know the right direction to go to. So what we're trying to leverage is that college age. And so how can we disseminate this information to college students from that age group? And so my goal is to hopefully get in contact with different universities, friend organizations within the university that, work with students that maybe are in the they want to be a cardiologist, or their philanthropy is focused on heart health. Because as you know, the saying of there's 1 in 100 babies are born with CHD. So if you go into a college campus of 20,000 people, do the math, that's a lot. There are people on that campus that have CHD. So how can we reach those people that maybe aren't in an adult care yet? So that's one avenue we're trying to recruit an engagement. Another one that's on the back end that we're slowly developing is kind of like an ambassador program. So, while I can sit here and kind of have all these ideas, I'm not in every state, every location. And so how can we partner with patients who are great advocates themselves, who are in the app, using it often and find a lot of benefit from it? How can they use their voices to amplify this digital tool we have to help other adults with congenital heart defects? So it's going to be kind of a multi-tier approach to engagement and getting other people alongside that are also passionate about it, because the more voices we have and the more understanding what it is, hopefully that will kind of trickle over into a population that we're trying to reach. And at the end, finding people that are lost to care and to empower them to be their best patient advocate for themselves.
And that kind of grassroots approach to disseminating information, kind of like coming on a podcast and talking about it, is really great, because I know for a fact that all the CHD charities tend to take that approach where they have the local advocates who help organize the events, help organize the walks, get the word out, and then it disseminates into the community like that. So I think that approach will be very well received. Now, Lindsay, from your perspective, why is empowerment so essential? A lot of what we've talked about has been empowering patients and giving them the tools, but why are we so focused on that?
Empowerment is something that can be learned, which is really exciting. The healthcare industry is very, very overwhelming. And if you're walking into an appointment and don't feel confident in, knowing your situation, or confident asking the questions, it's intimidating, and you can feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. My health is now going to go in a different direction. So empowerment is learned. And so that's what we're hopeful in this app and this digital tool, by giving them educational resources, connecting them with people, and having their medical passport, that they feel more confident. This empowerment will give them confidence, and confidence leads to better health outcomes. So really, empowerment is essential in great healthcare.
I just want to restate a very important point that Lindsay said, that empowerment is not something you're born with. It can be learned. It is so critical for everybody to understand. Like, they shouldn't feel like patients should feel going into their healthcare that I'm not a good advocate, or I don't know how to do this. It can be done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, most people aren't
Exactly.
good advocates. This is how you become one. And Joe, how does this app give you the tools and the knowledge to become a good advocate for yourself? How does it empower the patients to do that?
Through our educational resources, and really like that, the expert and peer guidance is our biggest avenue. I think that the patients have really responded to that well. I think knowing that somebody else has like gone through this and hearing their experience and being able to connect with that is something really different than what we're doing. And then when we, in our educational resources and our design, we really try to think about like, how are we doing this different than all the other resources that are out there? In the sense that like, what does the patient want out of this? Like, if we're trying to define something, some terminology or something, what's the patient's state of mind? Then what do they need to get out of it to benefit them? Define the term, to define in the words to define it. But how does it benefit the patient, and how can they use this in the real world? And sometimes, it's really hard to do that. And like you have to go back to the drawing board sometimes. And it's like, you get lost because you're looking at what everybody else does. And like, you're trying to conceptualize it, and you think of how you learned it or whatever. But then at the end of the day, you always have to go back to the basics and say, how does this benefit the patient? How are they going to use this in the real world? You can't just regurgitate what everybody else has done, because it doesn't. The patient can go out there and find that. You can look it up on the internet. Google now will just spit out the answer at the top of the page, and it's going to be what's already there, right? What everybody else has already said. So it doesn't really help anybody, right? And that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying, like what we call elevating expectations, right? We're trying to do something better that helps the patients. So how can we put it in a form that is different than what they've seen before, that really helps them navigate their care, feel empowered, and go about this in a new way? And then we get feedback. And when we get that feedback, we iterate on it, try to improve on it, and do something, even better the next time, or even with our advisory board, within that, before it even goes out to the masses.
Well said. Doing things the way they've always been done will get you the same results that have always been achieved. And if you want to really disrupt something, you got to go back to the drawing board 5, 6, 10 times. Now, have you guys had feedback on the app yet, on the program itself? Have patients gotten back to you?
Yeah, we've had some really good feedback. We've had overall feedback that, it's less daunting now than going into appointments because I have more information. I find this information very valuable. Talking from patients who are very active in their care to newly active in their care, most of them are sharing that same sentiment. But I will kind of share some specific, there's no names attached to this, but for confidentiality purposes, but I'll give you some direct quotes. This information gives me confidence that I can rationally determine urgent versus non-urgent symptoms, as well as determining pertinent info to give my doctor. And I think that is so important, because I think a lot of times as CHD patients, I've sat here before like, oh my gosh, my heart's doing something funny. Do I need to go to the emergency room? Do I not need to go to the emergency room? Do I go to urgent care, or do I call? So we give information like that, guidance. And so people can use it the way they need to use it, and to know that we kind of were able to calm someone's anxiety maybe a little bit. I mean, it's huge. There are other feedback like this. I've been curious about what exactly each portion of the echocardiogram suggests about the function of the heart. It helps to understand better what I'm looking at, to know whether low numbers and percents are good or not. So getting more specific on the echocardiogram. I mean, I have gotten echocardiograms for 37 plus years, but even I didn't know that there's certain information that I can get out of it when I was reading a report. But now, like, reading the information that we've been given in this app, people are able to kind of discern a little bit more, what they're reading, and kind of understanding more about their own CHD. So we have gotten some very good specific feedback from users.
And I would say that's a perfect example right there of exactly what we were trying to do. And that, like, instead of just saying like, well, you will get a number that says what your ejection fraction is, we tried to say higher numbers better, lower numbers were like those sorts of things to give it a real life use case to the patient of how they can implement it in their life. And so then we got direct feedback saying this was useful, and so that's how we integrate the feedback into our design and understand, was this actually useful to the user? And then we can, in the future, education materials, we look at that and say, yeah, that was great. Let's make sure we keep doing that. And how can we use that feedback to make sure that we're continuing to do those sorts of things in the future, resources.
And to Justin, this also highlights the dynamic nature of our app. It's not static. It's not the material on the internet that is static and doesn't change often. We have the ability to constantly revise, keep everything centralized and updated.
And that's a much more impactful capability, especially with how quickly CHD care is advancing to live updates. And it's not something you learn. It's not like, for me, it's not something I learned once when I was 12 that I kind of sort of remember. This is live, applicable, and it's bridging the gap between what you might read out there that's like a academic approach versus practicality. I'm never going to know an echocardiogram inside and out like a tech would, like a nurse would, like a doctor would. But I can understand big number good, small number bad. I think most of us can, despite our background. So that's a great way to do it. Now that we have this app, let's say you're a patient, you're a new patient, someone diagnosed maybe as a teen or as an adult. What advice would you give someone newly diagnosed and hopefully incorporating everything this app has to offer?
My biggest advice to somebody is do no less research than you would for buying a new car or a new house, and become the expert in your condition. It won't only help you navigate the complexities of the healthcare system, but it'll help improve your outcomes, and it'll help with your mental health. It'll help you cope with your condition. I think a lot of people, might just show up to whoever they were, and wherever they were supposed to go without doing that research. But it's a major life decision. And so I think that, that research is important.
I love that advice because it's not only for new patients, but patients that have had, like, I was diagnosed at 6 months and it's just always been something I had. So when I sat down one day and realized, oh, I need to learn what the hell is going on. Like, I need to know this. So no less research than buying a new car or a new house. Like, it was embarrassing. I was researching something like, I think it was grad schools. And I'm sitting there going like, well, I know everything about these grad programs and where I want to go. I should probably know that about my own body.
So. Yeah, 100%.
Now, what's one of the biggest challenges y'all have faced since developing or launching the app? Like, what's something that really stuck out to you, something you had to overcome?
I think the biggest challenge, Tristan, has been really finding people who are not actively engaged in their healthcare, finding people who are more younger in their 20s, not active in advocacy or other research studies, because where and how do we find them? I think Lindsay already mentioned about few approaches that she's been taking, but I think that is the biggest, there's one thing that we talk about in our every meeting is how can we engage all of these patients? Some examples include men. It's very hard to engage men in any of the congenital heart disease research. Those in their younger, teens, high teens and 20s, we would love to involve more of them because, empowering at a younger age is so much more important. Those with racial ethnic minorities, just a few examples, but that has been the biggest thing I could think of.
Yeah, if you can figure out how to find those patients that are lost to care and get them unlost, you'll be the most popular person in CHD.
That's our goal, Dresden.
Ambitious goal, but until we have big ambitions, we can't,
Ambitious goal, but you guys are actively pursuing it. And if we can even make a dent in it, I'm pretty sure we'll have bronze statues of the three of you all smiling with a thumbs up or holding a phone with the app up. That is the challenge. It's the loss to care, it's the raising awareness, and those two go perfectly together because people don't even know they have a CHD and need that care because of the awareness factor. Now, complete opposite of that, what's a success story, something memorable, something impactful, something that when you sit home at night after, Joe, after redesigning something 6 times or after having to argue with someone, what is something you think back on and go, yeah, you know what, I'm still going to keep doing this? What's that memorable moment you've had since launching?
For me, it has been working in partnership with the patients, whether this is as a research team or on the advisory board. I think I'm really most proud of, and this is something I really feel very, very passionate and proud about, is that every member of our research team is also a patient. It's incredibly
Say that
meaningful
again.
to work along. Every person in my research team is also a patient. It's a congenital heart disease patient.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So, it's really incredibly meaningful to work alongside the people who are bringing the lived experiences and professional expertise.
That actually has me speechless. And for anybody who knows me, that's a really hard thing to do. It means every member, all of you and your team have that dual experience of not only the expertise in the appropriate field, but they know what a patient would need through lived experience. Holy shit. That is all right. Cool. All right. Joe, Lindsay, which one of you is going to top that story?
I know, right? Gosh, thanks. I know.
I can't top it, but I can say what
Add value.
motivates me at least. I think, as being a patient, I'm excited that we have over 450 active members, users in the study. Over 87% of them have found every educational resources we've given out helpful, and that we have over 54% of them have completed the activities at 8 months. Initially, you might not think that's a lot, but when we designed this study, the benchmark from other studies, digital health tools and just digital tools in general is about 30%. So having 54% is really meaningful to us. And we think, I think that it kind of goes back to what Anu was saying. I think having patients that are really involved in our advisory board and at every step has really helped to create a tool that these patients find valuable. And so, I mean, to me, I think hearing that and some of the things Lindsay shared earlier about the patient feedback is the same sort of thing. If the patients weren't finding it valuable, I think it would be hard to wake up every morning and work on it, honestly. So it just makes it easy.
Anyone who knows apps and knows programs like this or similar digital tools, if they hear 87 and 54%, like 87%, I don't know if they would ask you what the secret sauce is or call you a liar, because those are some miraculous engagement metrics. All right, Lindsay, close us out strong.
Well, Josen, the heart of what we do is the patients. And so my favorite part of all this has just been connecting with patients. And every single CHD patient has a unique story. And when I've been able to share what this app and the capabilities and how it can empower other CHD members, they're filled with excitement and like, oh my gosh, where has this been? Why hasn't this been around? This is going to be so helpful.
So everything I said.
Yeah, everything you said. Yeah, exactly. But it's just, we can develop, right? So all week long we're developing and we're creating content and we're crunching the numbers, we're doing the busy work. But like sometimes you can get lost in like what's the actual final product. But then when you can talk to the patients or when you can see the feedback, like wow, like this is really working. We're really doing this. And so my favorite part has been connecting with patients and hearing their true feedback, and in turn being able to make an even better digital tool for them based on what they share with us. So I'm just like super grateful to even be asked to be a part of this project. It's been such a joy for me and working with these two individuals here because I'm learning so much as well from them.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. That's just how all three of them tied together and tied to all the other questions right before. That was just wholesome. Wholesome is the word I'm struggling to find, because normally, and this is reflective of the exact problem you guys are facing. When I talk to CHD patients and we talk about a lot of their experience, it's overcoming things. Mm-hmm. So not only hearing about this app and what you overcame to make it, but how everything that's going into it and the team of patients you're working with and the team of patients doing the work. Very feels good, man. Feels good. Speaking of feel good, something I always like to end on, and I'm going to ask all three of you, and I want full answers, so don't feel rushed here, because this is my favorite part of every episode. At this point, being a patient, a family member, a researcher, a doctor, an app developer, what does CHD mean to you? Not the malformations and structure of the heart, not the definition, but what does CHD, the community, the work, all of it mean to you guys?
It's a deep question, Dresden. But I'm gonna. It's kind of piggybacking off a little what I said. CHD to me means resilience, and like you said, overcoming. Every one of us have that unique story, and we are fighters. I mean, you just sit down with any one of us, and all the surgeries and tests and the the questions of what's going to happen next. What is my future going to look like? Can I plan for the future? But still, day in and day out, these patients get up and continue living life to the best of their ability. And to me, every time I talk to a CHD patient, I just see resilience. And no one wants to be a part of this club, but I'm so proud to be a part of the club because there's so many wonderful people that make the club up. So I would say if I had to use one word to describe what CHD is, to me, it would be resilience.
When you said fighters, I actually wrote down resilience because if you listen to some of the other answers to this question, I think that comes up more often than not, if not every single time.
Really? We're on the same page.
Joe, you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah, I think for me, it's passing on what has been given to me. And I think when I look at all the patients who sacrificed to make my life successful, I think it's sort of my duty, my art to try to pass that on in some way. And then in this way, it's like if you read a book like The King of Hearts or something like that, you realize that there was a lot of patients that came before us in the past generations that sacrificed their lives to advance this science, knowingly sacrificed their lives, to advance this science, to get us to a spot where we could live a valuable life. And it's amazing. It really is. What can we do as this generation to make sure that the next generation lives even better than us? And so I think that's, what we're all doing in whatever small way we can do it. I don't expect anybody to give up their life, but it's just whatever we can do, whether it's spreading awareness or, making sure that one person gets the care they need or whatever it is, right? Like how can we pass on what the previous generation did to make sure that, you look at the survival rates now and how far we've come. It's just amazing.
Even in the last 50 years. No, I'm a little choked up from that answer, but it reminds me, I was on a board. It might have been one of our board meetings for the app, but somebody was mentioning the lack of care. It was a different meeting. So lack of care and how, as long as she's been around dealing with it, it's just been the same problems over and over. And it's insane that we're still dealing with these issues. And I said, well, yeah, but better us than our kids. And I've never seen somebody calm down so quick because it kind of just made all click. And it goes right to what you were saying about how all these problems, especially the problems this app is addressing and the need for empowerment, it sucks that we're having to deal with it. But compared to the people that came before us and suffered in much different ways, these are good problems to have. Good problems to have. I do.
All right. I can't top off any of those. But, for me, it's really more than a job. It is my purpose and passion that I found, through this entire medical journey and as a personal journey. I feel really incredibly lucky that I get to wake up every day and do work that's not only deeply meaningful, but also with people who are like amazing partners in this meaningful work and just gives me full of hope. So for me, hope is the biggest word that comes when I think about CHD. It just makes me a better person. It makes me a better doctor. Everything I learn every day from talking to my advisory board patients and learning from their perspectives outside of my clinics in medical practice, it has really shaped me to be a better doctor and a person when I go back in my clinical practice.
Beautifully said. It's resilience, it's giving back, it's hope, and it's amazing how even something as focused and technological as this interview versus every interview I've done, how it comes back to CHD patients are resilient, they're fighters, they are optimistic. And optimistic almost feels like a criminally understated way to phrase it, but they're forward-looking, forward-thinking, giving back to the next generation. And, something I always think about is if this podcast makes one person's life just a little bit better, if this podcast, if it introduces this app to a couple people, that makes all the difference. It really does. So I just want to thank you guys for coming on because this is incredibly impactful. This has been a roller coaster of emotions for me. But sincerely, thank you guys for the work you're doing. This is a hard battle to fight and a hard battle that needs to be fought. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Justin, for having us over. It was really heartwarming to have this conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Dresden.
Thank you.
And that was Anu, Lindsay, and Joe, the team making this program a reality. Like I said before, you can learn more and sign up at EmpowerMyCH.org, not .com.org. I might have made that mistake once or twice. You can also follow them on Instagram at empower.my.ch. That's empower.my.ch. It's also on Facebook under EmpowerMyCH. And remember, if you have any questions or comments on the episode, if you have any follow-up for this app and need any help with it, you can reach out through our website, 1percentheart.com. You can email support@1percentheart.com, or you can message me on Instagram at the CHD podcast. Thank you guys for listening. See you soon.